I heard about my great-grandmother Mariah, she was a woman that believed in limitless optimism. Even though she was the granddaughter of slaves, limitless optimism. And it was about a month ago now, we were at the NAACP and Charleston's Freedom Fund. And I was telling them that even though my grandmother would not have probably imagined or thought of that I would be on the stage with the next president of the United States, Kamala Harris, she wouldn't be surprised because she had limitless optimism. When we found out that Barack Obama was our president, I was at the gas station across the street from CSU. And when I found out, I heard it over the radio, and I just cried in the car. Because, you know, that whole idea of limitless optimism. It changed like what I thought of myself, what I could be. That glass ceiling that we all, as men, especially black men, face all the time. It was shattered. I want my daughter must, all of our daughters must, all of our sisters, my mama, all of us, we must have that same thing for the black women in our life. We, as black men, owe it. It's our obligation, in my opinion, to support Senator Harris, 100%. And I called, as soon as I found out, the next day I went to church first on Sunday. The next call I made was to Senator Harris and say, I will support you. Let me tell you, Rashida, she won't even talk about this, but within a week of me making that decision, she wrote a handwritten letter or a handwritten note on her children's book about heroes to my daughter. And got it to me within a week. And, you know, she's running for president, not governor of South Carolina, even though she here a lot. You know, I think so highly of you and the work that you're doing. I will do everything I can. I took Luke around my city yesterday, and we're going to do everything we can to make sure that you will be our president. My daughter deserves that.
Don't make me cry over it.
Here we are at Barbershop.
This is where we hang out at. We have all kind of conversations.
I know that. Only truth gets spoken in the barbershop.
We talk about Kamala Harris in the barbershop all the time. All the questions come up. Is she black enough? Why she got to have a white husband? Is she Kamala the cop? These are all the conversations in the barbershop. Some of the things we talk about right now. And so it's a great thing that you addressed all those things that we talk about as African American men. And like I said to you before, my son and my daughters should be afforded the same opportunity as everybody else. Why do we question who we are as a people? You know, why are we questioning supporting this African American woman who was raised in Oakland, went to a historical black college, who lived a life of no different than what I lived? Why is it so difficult for people to just be on an automatic, oh no, I'm supporting her. Because she lived the same life, I'm supporting her. Why is it a question? Why do you think it's a question? And do you find it difficult? Because you know who you are. You know the life you live and where you came from. You know, do you find it difficult that you have to prove to black people that you're black enough?
I mean, it can be very hurtful. We talked about this earlier. For people to question that when there's no need or reason to do that. But you know, I mean, I experienced this when I was campaigning right here, you know, in all over actually in 07 for Barack. The people have an ability to see what can be, even if they've never seen it before. And we in particular do. All of the fights that we've had for civil rights, for voting rights, I mean, all of that, so much of which were the leaders in the South. Right here in South Carolina, in Georgia. We would not, none of us would be here having a serious conversation with a bunch of media about a black woman running for president of the United States.
Right.
If many generations, for many generations, including great-grandmother Mariah, hadn't had the ability to see what can be and what is possible, even if we've not seen it before. So I'm not hating anybody for the conversation.
Mhm.
I don't like it,
Mhm.
you know, but I understand it. The thing that has always been the reason for our progress is that optimism born out of faith and our preparedness to fight. And so that presents just a challenge for us as a campaign, which is to do the hard work of letting folks know. And I think there's the other part of it is that folks just, you know, look, November of 2016 was rough. That was hard on people. No human being likes to feel pain. And trying to make an effort to say something is possible. But the strength of who we are and every achievement we have gained has been because we don't also. We know that when the stakes are high, we don't sit back and wait for somebody else to give us permission to believe in what is possible. No, these are the challenges, and I'm up for it. And then you might think that breaking barriers means you start out on one side of the barrier and you just show up on the other side. Said no, there's breaking involved.
Right.
And when you break things, you get hurt.
There's
And when
this-
you break things, you might get cut and you might bleed, and it will be worth it.
there's something that I think that is specifically that happens with black folks, whether it's politics or otherwise, but there's always a question of, will people be ready for it?
Yeah.
And there's this ethos that someone said this, and I thought it was really interesting. They said, if you would have asked me how I wanted to listen to my music 15 years ago at the gym, I wanted a CD player. That's what I wanted. But Apple is like, hey, here's an iPod.
Yeah.
You know, so our jobs as innovators and as creators shouldn't be give people what they're ready for, but show them what they need to be ready for.
Mhm.
And I think that those conversations about are we ready for this is only uniquely specific towards us.
Mhm.
And so my question would be, you know, I can't imagine how difficult it is to be black and a woman running for something like this and have a legitimate shot. So my question would be for us in a room full of black men, what can we do for the black women in our lives? I know politics is partly we ask the candidate what they can do for us, but what can we do for you? What can we do to help this process? Because a lot of times young people of color and young black people, we just kind of put our hands up and don't think that we have a voice.
I mean, okay, we're in the barbershop, real talk.
Mhm.
I think part of what we have to do as a generation is we have to move the conversation away from black men and black women are very different.
Mm.
I agree.
Real talk. Real talk.
Mhm.
Because there is that. There is that. And, you know, and there is so much of our struggle that is the same struggle. Right, and there is so much that is different, and we know that. So I give honor and respect to all that is and the brutal history behind that, right? So that my point is not to say forget or overlook or don't see the differences. But when we talk about moving forward, I think that we as leaders, there's more that we have the capacity to do to remind young men and women of the fact that they're in it together and they should stand with each other and for each other in a way that's about unity. And this is the point of your question, you know, so unity. True unity is, you know, some people talk about unity meaning, okay, let's all be under the same roof at the same time.
Mhm.
But often in that situation, they'll say, and for the sake of that, you don't be too loud about your thing
Yeah.
for the sake of unity. But real unity means that nobody's thing is marginalized or not talked about or not addressed. True unity is about true unity. There is the issue of gender and there is the issue of race. And and I think this is the point that I'm really trying to get at, not so artfully. We cannot compare the tragedies or the pain.
Yeah. It's not a competition.
It's
like, who'll
not.
suffer more? You know?
It's not,
Exactly.
it's not. And sometimes it can get to that place.
Yeah.
And we can't afford to do that. We can't afford to do that.
Absolutely.
But speak these truths in a unified way so that we're not in one room talking about black women's issues and then in a different room talking about black men's issues.
I think all those issues
Right.
come together, especially in a barbershop, especially a barbershop like this. To piggyback off what you were saying, what can we do? It's accountability. One part of unity is accountability. I grew up in
That's right.
Broward County. I see the same thing in Broward County when I was 15 that I saw here when I moved here. I've been in Columbia about 11 months now. You get called the same N-word, it doesn't really matter. However, well, yeah, but I think overall though, to help our leaders, I learned from a wise man. He told me that when he found himself in competition with other cultures, he didn't get mad. He fared well every time he competed.
Right.
There it is. I think you show accountability. I show up. We fight together regardless of what you have or what I have. I'm gonna hold you accountable now. When you slip it, I'm gonna let you know, and you let me know.
That's right.
And that's how we help out the next president. Now, I'm not about hoping and wishing for too long, unless it comes with some hard work. My uncle was a Marine, 27 years or so, whatever, and he told me all the time as he punched me in my chest. That's what pain is weakness leaving the body. Forever and a day, that's what it is. So I think the pain of it, no one likes pain, but we all need it. In order to come through to this life, a woman had to go through some birth pains. So pain is part of it. I think we cannot shy away from it. We gotta stare at ourselves too. I think a lot of the stuff that we do see is a symptom of what's going on in our culture. And our culture is where we need to hone in everything that we need. And I think this is why you're here. I think that's why we're all here. We grew up in a different culture. Now we gotta own it, and we gotta have accountability. I believe in that first, so we become more responsible for everything that we're gonna be moving forward. I don't think it's always an issue of how you hit me, it's how I hit you back. And I think that's more important. And I think you said it too when you first came in. I believe in building a legacy. So if I have to lay down first for it, it's where your grandmother didn't tell that story. I want to tell a story too. My son's there. We're gonna tell a different story. But yeah, it's all about the pain you're gonna go through. So he's gonna go through some pain too. He'll be all right.
We always talk about in the barbershop, we hear candidates, say, oh yeah, we're gonna raise the minimum wage. We're gonna raise the minimum wage. We're gonna have and then another candidate say, no, forget about the minimum wage. We're gonna give you a living wage. But everybody in this barbershop, everybody in barbershop in America, every black man, we want to own something.
That's right.
You feel me?
That's right.
We don't want to work $15 an hour in Miami, get you in the projects.
That's right.
$15 an hour in Atlanta, get you in the projects. You can't live off $15 an hour in LA. It's just that simple.
That's right.
But, so those are the kind of conversations that we have, and most candidates pretty much don't understand that we want to know how we're going to own something. We don't
Let's
want
talk about that.
Yeah.
I like that. Let's talk about that. So I grew up celebrating Kwanzaa. And there's a Swahili term for it's called kujichagulia, for self-determination, right? And that's where it's about it's an old concept, right? It's from the ancestors. And the point is that you have the power within you, and then exercise that, right? That self-determination, and you can conquer. And so that's exactly your point, because that's an entrepreneurial spirit, right? So here's a number of things in terms of dealing with this issue. There is a real racial wealth gap in America. Black families own 1/10 of the wealth of other families. 1/10. One of the areas that I'm specifically focused on, I'm focused on entrepreneurship, and I'll get to that, but one of the other areas that I'm very specifically focused on is home ownership. Because home ownership represents intergenerational wealth. So let's go back to just more recently, World War II. So hundreds of thousands of people, mostly men, went to serve in that war. They were called the Great Generation. There were a lot of black men who went to serve. America said, this greatest generation, they fought so hard. We are going to reward them, and we are going to build a middle class with them. So there were these government programs to award grants and incentives for home ownership. Guess who was excluded?
Us.
Right. So there was this massive infusion of basically startup capital. Folks were excluded. Then so then that creates a disparity too, because it's not like it didn't happen at all. It did happen for many and not for some. Then you look at the history, and just kind of, it's a crude outline of the history, but then you do the decades of redlining, which was in the South, it was in places like Chicago, the Midwest, West Coast, all over, where it was basically it institutionalized that black families could not buy homes, in particular in communities where the home would see a lot of value, right? So intergenerational wealth. When your daughter, Mariah, says, Daddy, I want to go to Howard, you'll be able to say to her, if you're a homeowner, honey, don't take out loans from those for-profit lenders who are going to charge all those outrageous interest rates. I'll take some equity out of my home. When your son says, Daddy, I want to start a small business, you'll say, son, don't take out one of those expensive loans. I'll take some equity out of my home. Intergenerational wealth. So what I intend to do is put $100 billion of federal money into families that are living in historically redlined communities and families that are living in federally subsidized housing to give them help with the down payment and closing costs for home ownership. Because if you want to talk about sustainable sources of wealth, just economic health, we're not talking extreme wealth, we're talking about the wealth that is necessary, to your point, to have a quality of life where you can send your children to college or you can help them start a small business. Home ownership is one of the most specific and tangible and real things that we can do around changing that balance around the racial wealth gap. So that's one part of it. What part of that also I'm focused on as an extension of that is that to own a small business, to be an entrepreneur, you need startup capital. That means access to capital. You know that. Well, a lot of that is going to be a function of your credit history. So now credit history is basically, if you were to break it down, to just basically decide, are you a good bet? If I put my money on you, are you going to pay it back, right? It's supposed to measure, is this individual, are they responsible with money and the bills? But here's the thing, credit history mostly tests the responsibility of people who already have money. Because it tests, did you pay your credit cards on time? Well, nobody gave you a credit card if you didn't have some money. Or did you pay your mortgage on time? Same thing.
Y'all have a mortgage.
Right? That's right. So what I intend to do is expand it, because if it's supposed to be about are you responsible with your money, how about asking, do you pay your phone bill on time?
Yeah, that's accounting. If you're renting,
Right? Do you pay your rent on
absolutely.
time?
Yeah.
Do you pay your utilities on time? Because that makes you a good bet.
And also something similar to that, kind of to piggyback off that I see that happens too, and it doesn't even have to be a broad ideal, is people that I know that if your credit history isn't that great and you have an emergency, there's predatory loans.
Right.
When you look at the fine print,
Awful.
300% interest rates.
I know.
And I have no idea how that's legal.
I know.
You know what I mean?
12 million people in America last year took out
Absolutely.
those payday loans
Absolutely.
at an interest rate often in excess of 3%.
And I would have these conversations with my friends, and I'd be like, hey, look at, you're paying for this 3 times over. And they're like, I have no choice.
I know.
If I need tires in a car, or if someone's sick and went to the hospital, and that's a real thing that I see on a regular basis, you know?
And it is like we always would talk about, you know where you are when you see a liquor store on every corner.
Yeah.
And now, as time has emerged, you see a liquor store on
Title
every
loans.
corner, and you see those
Title loans,
payday loan lenders on every corner. And that's real. And so that's about access to capital, right? I also have a whole piece that's about billions going into entrepreneurs around federal grants. And for the startup capital again. And the incentive is for folks to go into communities where it's going to be an infusion of capital, not only in that business, but in the community. Because as we know, our small business owners, historically and currently, are always not just leaders in business, but civic leaders. community leaders. They're always giving back. They're always hiring people. So talk about return on investment when we talk about finances, right? This is what the big Wall Street people, this is how they measure whether it's a good, if it's a cost and if it's worth it. Return on investment. The return on investing in entrepreneurs in the community is great.
Because sometimes when we start talking about black people, and then when it gets to politics, it doesn't say black people, we use a broad stroke like minority.
Yeah.
So now, when as it come to politics, and I'm a business owner, we did the exact same thing you just said. We were schooled in the barbershop, and the way we got our capital was the owner of the barbershop made all his barbers buy houses first.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we had to buy a house
that's
first.
That's right.
And we took the equity out of our
That's
first
right.
home, and we opened up our first shop.
Yeah, that's right.
And we became the first black franchise in 2017. He's the second franchise owner. So I say that, but that was taught in the barbershop. That wasn't
That's
taught.
right.
We didn't get that from politics. But
That's right.
the thing I'm concerned with politics is when we have these conversations, but when it gets to that level where you're at, they have to have this, we start defining things differently. And we're talking about specifically something that happens to black people here in America. So we have to be specifically targeting to help those people. Because we put those people in a position, and everybody knows the history.
Yeah,
Everybody understands the history of America.
that's right.
America, you did this to these people. You should write laws for these people. Don't group us in with everybody, because everybody, it didn't happen to everybody. But let's be fair. We playing from behind the eight ball. We way back there, 400 years back there. We're not asking y'all to give us nothing. We actually write the law. Those of us who are willing and able to do the work, will do the work.
That's right.
That's what we need.
That's right. And that's why, for example, on the housing piece, it's about redline communities. Because it was black families that were and black neighborhoods that were redlined. Out of, meaning the line kept folks in that neighborhood because it didn't allow access to the other neighborhood.
I think that when I look back at Obama's presidency, I think one of the things that the public was really paranoid, and these are the supporters, I think they were a little afraid or frustrated that Obama may have felt kind of handcuffed to talk about specific things for black folks. But then I hear, other politicians are black, they can say stuff like, oh, we want to put money towards HBCUs and we want to do this. And I'm like, well, can a black candidate say that and not get the same blowback? So you feel that pressure at all, that when you're campaigning and you're saying, hey, here's things that specifically affect people that look like me, do you ever feel blowback or feel like it might be an issue when you're trying to progress in the race?
I mean, again, real talk in the barbershop, yes. That people interpret a message based on who the messenger is. Even if the words are spoken, the same words that are spoken in court, yes.
Why does it happen with us? Because I think any other group of people, if they're speaking on behalf of benefiting them, whether it's race-based, whether it's a common goal in hand, but when we start talking about things that help black people in the black community, somehow we're not supposed to say them out loud.
You got a lot of people with bad credit scores.
Yeah.
The leader can't help out.
Yeah.
She can't. So the next president of the United States she has to be able to empire build. So she takes a bird eye view. The people have to get their stuff straight. In a barbershop, real talk, get their S straight so we can go help the leader. Because she can only turn her eye to what the problem is. But if the problem is, we got to figure out what Jordan we're going to wear this weekend for homecoming, and he ain't focused on the credit score. Again, it's the accountability piece. I can't put my hand out and accept something back from you if I ain't got no power. There's a certain power, so especially in the barbershop, especially the guys I talk to, white, black, doesn't really matter. Trump supporters are here and everything. It's a power structure. So for instance, when Trump speaks to those people, they have a certain power plug in right away. so they feel connected. It don't matter if they got $1 billion or $5. They plugged in. We gotta get the people off 2 knots to get plugged into the people that live on Gervais Street.
Yeah.
That's just it.
And I would also say with us in this room, when we have opportunities to support black business, let's do it. Because we always think that, it's this big challenge that we have. So
It is.
I will be getting my cuts here from now on. You know what I'm saying? But that's a small thing that we can do. You know what I mean? That's the thing. If it's difficult for us to build a black-owned business, let's find the black-owned businesses that are there and help them out.
As people in the community, that we invest in our candidates.
Absolutely.
Because I remember for me, there was this small investment group, they had just started, there were 3 black guys that weren't at Boeing, and they started an investment group. They made 2 investments last year when they started. They bought a 18-wheeler to start a logistics company, and they invested in my campaign.
Really?
Those are 2 things they did last year. And we as a community, and the senator can speak on this probably, we don't invest in ourselves when it comes to politicians, because politicians need money, or elected officials, as a part of that work, need money to get the message out there. I know the senator's been working hard to raise the money that she needs in order to get the message out. We need to be supporting her. $5, $10, $100. We have to invest in her. What I liked about talking to you yesterday, Luke, is that you've been doing that in Miami.
Yes.
You've been kind of living what I'm talking about, and we got to do it as a community, and as black men, we got to lead on that issue because we don't do it now.
Yeah, what we talked about, we found that in Miami, why our communities were getting gentrified. We had those different discussions and why we don't get the big contracts. We have a black contractor, kids that I sponsored and sent in Florida and them, that other great companies.
Let me just clear, there's one Mecca, and then there are others.
What we found was why we was losing our community. We were losing our community because Latin Builders Association was putting all the money into the African American candidate. So when we go to the African American candidate and say, hey, look, we need black contractors to get these contractual jobs, whether it's in the school system or whether it's in local government. And when you look down the list of donors to that candidate, the money that's generated in his campaign came from people who don't look like us. So when there's a building getting put up in our community, or one of our properties has been sold off, the people who are building those buildings don't look like us. So we as black men sat down and and women sat down in the barbershop and said, we need to get involved in the political process. Going to what you're saying, we need to be able to own our candidates. And so we...
Well, you don't mean own your candidate.
Not own a candidate.
Read this straight. Wait.
I know that's not what he meant. I know that's not what he meant. I knew that's not what he meant.
No, put money in their
Invest in
And support.
Yes, because most people don't know those Kamala Harris signs, that costs money.
Yeah.
The commercials, that costs money. And so when we started investing, long story short, when we started investing in our candidates, they were able to now not have to take money from other special interest groups or those other people who don't look like us. And then they can sit on the dais and be able to say, no, that's not going to happen. Nope, we're going to do this in our community. We're going to build these parks. We're going to put money into these infrastructures. And when these black contractors come in and ask for jobs, they're now able to get them.
We see ourselves through other people's eyes. Every other ethnic group wants to see themselves in, that either culture or whatever they're trying to project. We don't look at ourselves through our eyes. I feel like that's why we have lack of HBCU funding. That's why we have lack of us supporting our HBCUs, because a lot of times we're controlling, we're following the narrative they want us to control. Because I feel like a vote for you is establishing identity for our community. You know, it's and we're blind to that right now. I think right now they see you, like Uncle Luke said, like you check all the boxes. Went to Howard, graduated from Howard. I look at you as a Black Panther in a suit. This is an opportunity for us. Like right now, we're just like, you know, is it hurt? But it is. Yeah. And so like, and I think it's conversations like this. You know, Black men stepping up and supporting our women. You know, I think this conversation is gonna go really, really far for our community because, for one, I think Kamala Harris, you're an opportunity for us to, you know, iron out a lot of those problems in our community. You know, this is an opportunity for Black men to say, yo, we have to stand behind you. Yeah. You know, for Black women to be like, yo, we're in this together.
We just want to thank that you came to the barbershop where the boys hang out at.
No. I'm just so glad you welcomed me, that you let me.
And that, you know, I think, you know, for me, a lot of my questions have been answered. And just like we talked about it, you know, I was tough on you in the beginning, but after having conversations with you about the various topics that were in question that we normally talk about in the barbershop, I ended up saying, okay, I'm supporting this lady full-fledged, 100%. I'm going to do a fight for her. And I just like everybody else says around the room, you are an inspiration to us. And there should be no question for any African American why they should not support you. You know, and even though I got beat up by the AKAs in my house, my wife, but it is very, very important for, just like the young man said, that we get behind you because we have daughters, you know, we have to uplift our women. If we don't do it, ain't nobody else gonna do it. So if we don't do what you're saying, if we don't support this Black woman here, you know, at the end of the day, what are we saying as a race of people? What's the question? Why are we debating whether or not she's Black enough? Why are we debating whether or not she's qualified? Because I know at the end of the day, for me, if you look at every candidate standing on that stage, I have the confidence that if Trump stalks you the way he stalks Hillary, he might get it. He might get cussed out. You know, I'll be in the house like, yeah.
My fellow citizens,
it is strong.
It's my duty to report
The true problems of our nation.
We vigorously developed this resource to be of great benefit.
Where diverse nations are drawn together in common cause.
I will be eternally grateful for your support.